In this video, we're going to factor polynomials that do not have a coefficient of 1, and there's nothing you can do to get it down to a coefficient of 1. In the last video, we were able to factor out a monomial, and by doing that, we got our coefficient to be 1, but in this case, we cannot do that because 7 does not divide into 3. 6 does, but 7 does not. So we can't divide everything by 3 like we were doing. How can we solve this? All right, this is where the diamond method really shines, because in the diamond, you had to do A times C. We always had an A that was 1, but in this case, it's going to be 3 times -6. So that's going to be 3 times -6, which is -18. And then we just keep our 7. Now we got to figure out what two numbers add to get to 7 and multiply. I'm going to do that different color. Add to get to 7 and multiply to get to -18. So in this case, we're not going to go with the 6. We got to do -18. So what two numbers multiply to get to -18, but add to get to 7? So I know that -18 is going to be 2 and 9. But I don't know which one should be negative, so I'll put the negative on the 2. So now we've got -18, -2 times 9. If I do -2 plus 9, does that equal, so that's -18, does that equal 7? It does. So I figured out my numbers pretty quickly this time. I'm not going to go through all the rigmarole that I did in the other videos. This video, we're going to go kind of fast. So now I know that it's going to be -2 and 9. However, in the beginning, we had to multiply by our A. The A was 3. And so what do we do now? We got to get that 3 to go away. So there was 3 and then x here. So I'm going to actually write that. 3x and 3x. And then divide. We do have to reduce these down, and there are other ways to solve this, which I will show for the last one in the video, but I wanted to show this way. This is my favorite way to solve it because everything is in the diamond. So now we've got 3x minus 2. That one I can't reduce down because it's just 3 and 2. However, this one, 3 and 9, I can divide both the top and bottom by 3. Let's do blue. So if I divide the top by 3 and the bottom by 3, I get 3 divided by 3 is 1. I can't really write it there. So this is going to be 1x, and then 9 divided by 3 is 3. So this is the new version that's right here. So now all I do is I take these and I put them in my parentheses. The first one is 3x minus 2. I do the top numbers and then put -2 right there. And the second one is not going to be 3x again. It's going to be 1x plus 3 because it was all positive here. And now if you want to double check if you did it right, you could always FOIL it out. So check with FOIL. If you're looking at the textbook and wondering why the textbook does not show you this method, the textbook prefers to teach you the guess and check method, which I don't like because you're literally creating this giant table, guessing your way through it when you could do this method and get the correct answer right away. So let's just double check with FOIL in case, I didn't. So 3x times 1x is going to be 3x squared. So we got our beginning. 3x times 3, that's going to be 9x. -2 times 1 is going to be -2x, and then -2 times 3 is going to be -6. You can already see it's going to work out. It's going to be 3x squared, 9 minus 2 is 7x, and then -6. So I did it correctly. This is the answer. All right, now, this diamond method does not work with a negative. That's where it falls apart. So if we're going to solve this with the negative, we need to factor out the negative. So how do I factor out the negative? That's easy. You just divide everything by -1. So we're going to divide by -1, divide by -1, divide by -1. All that does is change all the signs to the opposite sign. Anything divided by -1 changes. So now we've got a negative 1 on the outside, and then 3t squared, no more negative, minus 11t, and plus 6, because negative divided by negative becomes positive. And this I can use the diamond method for. So now I'm going to do the diamond kind of big this time. I think I did it big the last time. So I got to do 3 times 6. Do I have the same? Okay, I was about to say, is it the same thing? No. 3 times 6 is going to be positive 18. And we got to figure out what two numbers multiply to get to 18. And then we've got a negative 11. So what numbers add to get to negative 11 and multiply to get to 18? So that actually looks like a X there. So let's do our 18 over here. What numbers multiply to get to 18 but could get to 11? I think it has to be a negative 11, but a positive 18. They're both negative because I need to get to a positive 18, but okay, so then now I know it's going to be negative 2 times negative 9, because that will get me my positive 18. And then if I do negative 2 plus negative 9, that gets me negative 11. So I figured out my numbers. My numbers are negative 2 and negative 9. So negative 2 and negative 9. I forgot to leave myself some space up top, so let's rewrite that one. Okay, now I gotta do my getting rid of that 3 that we did. So that's a 3t, and this one was a 3t as well, because that's the only way I get t squared is if they're both t. And then I divide. I should have put this in here first. Sorry, guys, I keep forgetting to put that in there first. And now I got to do some reducing. There is no reducing to do here. There's the same reducing I did on the other video or other question. I have to divide by 3, divide by 3. That's going to be 1t over negative 3. So now if I write my actual answer out, it's going to be negative on the outside, right? Because there was a negative 1, so negative 1, 3t minus 2, and then 1t minus 3. And then if you FOILed this all out, it would go back to the original negative 3. So I'm not going to do that. That is the actual answer. Now, if you might not like this way because of the division and the reducing the fraction and all that, oh no, we can try a different way. This way is called the table and box method. So this one's table and, not table, sorry, diamond and box method. Diamond and box. All right, so in the diamond and box method, you do the same thing with the diamond, except we're not going to do any of the fraction division thing. So you got to make that diamond. You got to do the multiplying 9 times 4. So it's negative 9 times negative 4, which is positive 36. And then we got our 15. So now what two numbers multiply to get to 36? And they add to get to 15. Ooh, 36. That's 2 times 18. No, that's not going to work. I can already tell. So then 36 is 6 times 6. No, what about 2 times 12? Yes. Okay, wait. 36 is 3 times 12. Yes, even better. So now I know it's going to be 3 times 12, which does give me 36. And then 3 plus 12 equals 15. So now I know my numbers are 3 and 12. So I can write 3 and 12 here. Now, when I transfer them into the box, they're going to have a letter on them. So how the box works, I need a little bit of space up top. Sometimes you hear it called a square, the diamond and square, or just the square method. So the first thing you do is you take the beginning number, negative 9n squared, and you know what? I have a highlighter. Is that it? Yep. So let's highlight this right here. Negative 9n squared goes in this box right here. So now let's write that in there. So negative 9n squared. Okay, and then the negative 4 goes in the diagonal corner to that one. So this -4 is going to go right here. And so takes me a little bit to change colors. -4. Okay. Now, the two numbers that we found right here, the 3 and the 12, they go right into these other boxes. So we've got 3, and we're going to use the letter N now, and then 12N. Those are our two numbers. Okay. Now we can use the backwards method of figuring out what they have in common, the greatest common factor of each like row and column. So if I start with -9, n squared, and 12n, I know they both share an n, so I can totally put an n right here. Do they share anything else? Well, -9 and 12 both are divisible by 3. So I'm going to put 3n right here, which makes sense because 3n, and then so now what other number would you multiply to get to -9? I would do a -3. So now we've got 3n and -3n. That means that this one's got to be negative in order for me to pull out a -3n. Okay, so now we can do well, there's definitely a negative here that gets pulled out because they both share a negative. And then 3 and 4, they actually don't share anything. When I think about it. Yeah, but 4 and 12, they share a 4. So this one will be +4. So then this one's -1 because they only share a 1. Let's make sure I did this right. So then if I put them together, it'll be, oops, -3n plus 4, parentheses 3n minus 1. If I multiplied 4, that does give me -4. If I multiplied negative, that does give me 3 and then 4. Yeah, okay, let's spoil it out just to make sure because I'm doing it in my head, but I just want to double check. So then if I multiply that, -3 times +3 is going to be -9n to the second power. Then -3 times -1 is going to be +3n. And then 4 times 3 is 12. And then there's an n. And then 4 times -1 is -4. And then if I add 12 and 3 together, that makes 15n. So now I totally did it correctly. And some people prefer this method. I prefer this dividing method over here and just factoring out the -1. Either way is correct. They'll both work in my class for sure. And we are done.